cemetery in a rural part of western Tennessee, not far from her home. Good evening, I'm Jane Velez Mitchell, coming to you live from New York City. Now, Karen vanished 6 weeks ago after returning from a Halloween party after midnight. Her car was found later with a flat or slash tire, depending on who you talk to, along a main highway less than a mile from her home. Karen had just filed for divorce 3 weeks earlier, and she was still living with her estranged husband. Police have not named David Swift a suspect, but when a woman vanishes right after filing for divorce, police normally try to rule the husband out first. Now, shortly after Karen vanished, their son insisted his dad had absolutely nothing to do with his mom's disappearance.
My dad called me concerned. Immediately, he called me back later and told me that they had reported her missing. I never saw any violence. They both cared about each other, and they did, care about us.
So, the big question, who killed Karen Swift? What are your theories? Give me a call right now, 1-877-JVM-SAYS. That's 1-877-586-7297. Straight out to Natasha Chen, reporter for WREG. Natasha, what are police telling you tonight about this horrific discovery of Karen Swift's body?
Well, Jane, there's very little that they can actually say. The body is still going through some tests, and we may know more after those tests are done. All they're saying is that she's been killed. We don't have any details on what type of injuries or how she was killed.
Well, is she very badly decomposed? Not to be gruesome, but clearly, if she was very badly decomposed, that would be harder to determine the cause of death. You might not be able to see, let's say, something like a knife wound or a gunshot wound.
That's
was
right.
She badly
she was pretty badly. Yes, she was badly decomposed, and there's no way to really tell right now how long she was left out there. Like you said, she was discovered in a rural part of the area, and it was about 3 to 4 miles from her SUV where that car was discovered early the morning Sunday before Halloween. And so it's really hard to say right now. That area has a lot of growth. It's tough terrain. Search parties had gone out there before, but they didn't come across the body because it's kind of a difficult area to search.
Yeah, what I think as it gets colder, perhaps some of the foliage falls off and it's easier to find someone. What a tragedy. Look at that beautiful woman. Look at that beautiful woman.
Yes.
4 kids, 2 adult sons, and then 2 youngsters. Missing a mother tonight. Karen was reported missing Sunday, October 30th. Now, later that week, her car was found with a flat tire or a slash tire less than half a mile from her home in Dyersburg, Tennessee. Her body was found less than 3 miles from her home. So this is all happening right in the immediate area. And Pat Brown, criminal profiler, what does that tell you, that all of this is so close to where she disappeared from, her home?
Well, that's why the police obviously are starting with the husband, because that's kind of ground zero. He was the last one to see her. We don't know whether she left the house alive or not. They're going to be obviously interviewing him and seeing if any evidence matches him or it matches somebody else. Now that they have the body, which is a really helpful thing, sad as it is, they will be able to find out. They're saying it's a homicide, so they must know something. For example, she could have a hyoid bone that was broken when somebody strangled her. She could have fractures on her skull from being beaten. There could be something that gives some idea, and they may be able to determine if it was something else, like a rape, for example, a sexual homicide. They may have more information. And if that's true and there's DNA that doesn't match the husband, then he's out of the picture.
Police are not calling David Swift, the husband, a suspect in his murder's wife. Now, back in November, I talked to their son. I interviewed him, and I asked him, point blank, whether his parents' divorce was contentious. Listen to what he had to say.
I didn't see any ugly divorce at all coming out of it. They were both being very cooperative and trying to get through it as quick as possible for us and for the little girls.
Well, let's go to Vicki Ziegler, family attorney. We've seen the divorce papers. They were filed October 10th. Nothing out of the ordinary. The couple had sorted out already the custody and the child support. They were planning to share custody with the 2 young daughters living primarily with Karen. But hypothetically speaking, would you agree that it's not a great idea when you are divorcing someone to live in the same house with them during the course of the divorce?
Yeah, Jane, I mean, listen, there's enough acrimony as it is when one person wants out of a marriage, and apparently it's Karen Swift. She's the one that filed for divorce first. Apparently, it's been reported that Mr. Swift did not want the divorce. So that's the first problem. The second one is when you're living with children and you're sleeping in a separate bedroom. It really isn't healthy for the children. And I know in bad economic times, some people can't move out and create their second household, but it doesn't help. I mean, think about it. When people are happily married, they think about who's going to make dinner and who's going to go to the grocery store. When you're not happy and you want out of a marriage, you know, sitting down at the dinner table can't be that comfortable. Also, who's doing whose laundry, where are you going, and keeping tabs on the other one. So it is not the best scenario for two people that are actually getting divorced to actually remain in the same home. But again, we don't know their financial circumstances to actually point fingers.
And we are, again, Karen's husband is not considered a suspect, and we're going to read his statement in a second. But if we don't get to examine these situations and learn something from them, hypothetically, then we really are doing the viewers a disservice. And I think it would be fair, you're an expert, to say, hey, unless absolutely there's no other alternative, don't live with your husband during the divorce. Not a good idea. Now, I want to go to Bill Warner, who's a private investigator who has a totally different theory on this case. One that has absolutely nothing to do with any family member. Bill Warner, you find it very significant that Karen's body was found near a cemetery. Why is that?
Well, it wasn't found near. It was found next to. There's a little dirt road off of this Harness Road that leads up to the Bledsoe Cemetery. The little dirt road separates where the body was found and where the headstones are. It's within 30, 40 feet.
Okay, that's near. Just so you know, it's near. So
in tall weeds.
Yeah.
The problem I have is I was aware of earlier in the year, through January through March, that there's a supposed serial killer in the Memphis, Tennessee area who had killed 4 women and dumped in or near their bodies in a cemetery in Memphis, Tennessee, the Mount Carmel Cemetery. I find this a little disturbing, being only maybe an hour and a half away from Dyersburg. And there's a history of this, going back to the mid-1980s, with the Green River Killer, this Gary Ridgway. He dumped 3 or 4 of his victims in the Mountain View Cemetery in King County, Washington. So I don't know if we have some kind of a copycat killer or what's going on, but the cemetery thing is bizarre. I did my homework. I looked at all the different roads around this Harness Road in that area. There's many, many, many dirt roads. Many, many. Why did he choose the road next to the cemetery? Bizarre.
Well, I agree with you. It could be something connected to those other cases. By the way, I have no independent confirmation of that. We're going to have to research that and get back to you, viewers, and do an update on this as to this purported serial killer in the Memphis area. But also there are... I'm not disputing you, Bill. I'm just saying.
Okay, go ahead.
But also people do have a tendency, killers, to copycat. And if they've heard about it or read about it in the news, they might say, if I do this, then people will think it's that mystery serial killer. Now, there's other possibilities. We'd heard about dispute with a neighbor, somebody who had purportedly poisoned dogs. Now, cops have said that has absolutely nothing to do with it. But let's say this. We don't know what happened. But on the other side of the break, we're going to take your calls, and we're going to read a statement from Karen's husband that was just released through his attorney. That's right. He has lawyered up at this point. It took 6 weeks to find the body of this beautiful missing mother of 4, Karen Swift. Did her divorce that she was currently undergoing as she lived with her soon-to-be ex-husband under the same roof, did that have anything to do with what happened to her? We're taking your calls. 1-877-JVM says 1-877-586-7297.
And he's having to look at their eyes, and he's having to dry their tears, and he doesn't know. He doesn't have anything that he can reassure them, with any honesty, because he doesn't know where she is, if she's okay, if she's not okay, if she's coming back, if she's not coming back. He's just left in limbo.
Something like that could happen just right down the road.
I heard that Karen Swift was found at the graveyard up here. Whoever done it is sick. That's how I think.
For weeks, police in rural Tennessee did extensive frantic searches on the ground and in the air. We're talking horses, helicopters. They found nothing until this past weekend. Was Karen's body there for weeks, possibly just covered in thick brush that now that it's getting colder has dropped off, and we're starting to see what's underneath the leaves? Michelle Sagona, investigative reporter, you've got some new information for us.
I do. That's right, Jane. About 30 minutes ago, I spoke with the sheriff there in the county, and what he told me was that a tip led them to this place where Karen Swift's body was found. This was not something that they stumbled across. This was not a search that had been taking place in the area, but a tip, in fact, led them to that area. They did recover her body. That's when they took her to the Memphis Medical Examiner's office, where she is now. They may release the cause of death at some point, as we know right now that they are investigating this case.
I want to jump
homicide.
in and ask you, what is the significance of the tip? That would mean that somebody else, aside from whoever's responsible,
that would mean someone came forward to them with information, or they interviewed with someone that gave them a nugget of information.
No, but what I mean is, doesn't it imply that generally it's not the killer themselves that calls in the tip and says, hey, here. Usually it's somebody who might know.
Generally not. Exactly.
Yeah, so
someone
an
that may have
accomplice,
information.
An accomplice.
Possibly someone that helped out, possibly someone that has information. It's really hard to tell. Maybe someone that learned something about this a little bit later on, but that's extremely important. Also, I want to close in on this timeline a little bit.
And we're going to get to that. Let me hold on a second, because I want to dive into that. First, we're going to go to the phones. Kia in Massachusetts, your question or thought, Kia?
I was wondering what the police did in between the 30th when she went missing and now when they found her body. Were there searches in that area, or did the police just wait around for another tip?
Well, Natasha Chen, the police searched a lot, helicopters,
Yes, they
horses,
did.
etc. But I want to ask you, did they issue a search warrant on the house, or did the husband allow them into the house to search the house?
I can't quite remember if they approached the husband about searching the house. I do know that the place where the body was found is a place that they actually searched before. But because of the terrain, it's being tough and there's a lot of growth in that area, it was tough to perhaps see the body there, which is why they may have missed it the first time. I do know that when our crews went to Karen Swift's house to try and talk to David Swift, that he had no comment and tried to ask us to leave the property.
All right, well, Karen's husband has just released his statement through his lawyer, quote, at this point in time. It's very emotional for Mr. Swift and the family. They're asking for, at least for this period of time, to have some privacy. It's time for grieving and it's time for mourning. But the weird thing about this timeline is the woman who's now dead picks up her daughter at a Halloween party at 1:30 in the morning because the daughter had reportedly wanted to go home. Reports are she goes to bed with the daughter, but gets up in the pre-dawn hours and vanishes. Her son told me, well, Karen must have gotten up and driven somewhere. Listen to this.
My mom and my little sister went to sleep. They both got in their pajamas, went to sleep. And then a little while later, my little sister fell asleep, and she actually remembers my mom picking her up and putting her in my little sister's bed. So she obviously was going somewhere.
Joey Jackson, criminal defense attorney. What woman leaves her kids and drives off at 4:30 in the morning? Meanwhile, the husband, by the way, is still living in the house with her, according to published reports. So presumably he's the last adult to have seen her alive.
Yeah, Jane, it is very suspicious. I think it's going to have to be determined by who lured her out, if anyone, and if they did lure her out, what was the basis of it, and, what would she have a reason to be out at that time? Now, you suggested earlier, Jane, regarding the body and the recovery of it. It's horrific news, of course, but in recovering the body, I think there could be a treasure trove of information, not only on the body itself, scientifically, DNA perhaps matching somebody to it, but also the surrounding area. You know that the police are going to do extensive work in all types of scientists and the autopsies that are going to be conducted, and they'll be able to determine, perhaps what the cause of death was, what, if anybody, who might have been involved, and I think that would be significant in bringing this case to a close.
It sure will. Let's go to the phone lines again. Michelle, California, your question or thought, Michelle.
I just wanted to say I really like your show, Jane. And this really hits close to home. 3 weeks ago, an acquaintance in our town, same thing, going through a divorce, and the husband strangled her and then committed suicide. So I totally believe it's the husband. What mother leaves their kids like that?
It's an odd situation. We want to re-emphasize that the husband is not considered, and you're looking at him right there. They make a beautiful couple. They were in the process of getting divorced. They were reportedly living together through the divorce. They have 4 kids, 2 adult boys and 2 younger girls. And he is not considered a suspect at all. This is, according to police, they have not named any suspects. But we are going to analyze this further because we've got a private investigator on the line who, again, has a totally different theory involving a serial killer from Memphis. You won't believe these developments.
Immediately, he called me back later and told me that they had reported her missing. I never saw any violence. They both cared about each other, and they did, care about us.
Who killed a beautiful missing mother of 4, Karen Swift, the night she vanished? Karen left urgent voicemails and texts for friends. Listen to what that friend told Nancy Grace.
She called me at 11:38, at 11:39, and then at 11:40 she sent me a text that said, "Jenny, call me, please." And I had went to bed at 11 o'clock. It was normal for her to text me. She did that a lot. But for her to call me 2 times in a row, and then when I didn't respond, for her to then text me, that was, I felt like that she was upset about something.
Family attorney Vicki Ziegler, does that raise eyebrows in your mind?
It definitely does. Maybe she was out of the house and she could speak freely and she needed to talk to a friend. She was at a party. So, that to me perhaps has a question that she really needed an SOS. She needed a friend. There was something going on that she needed to talk to. Unfortunately, she was not able to speak to that friend. And there are a couple of the things, Jane, that are so troubling to me. And this young boy, Preston, their oldest son, said, he never saw any problems. Well, guess what? Your viewers need to understand that when people go through a divorce, the attorneys and the litigants know what's going on. Hopefully, the children really don't know what's going on. More importantly, we don't know, was there a big life insurance policy here? Another question, that's been raised. And the last thing is, I think Mr. Swift lawyered up 24 or 48 hours after his wife went missing. That strikes me as a little odd, especially if you love your wife, even though she wants a divorce, and you're trying to make it work.
Well, I don't know. Listen, if I were in his situation, I would get a lawyer immediately, because we all know that police look at the immediate intimate partner first because of the horrific statistics regarding intimate partner violence and statistically what happens. Now, Michelle Sagona, what I'm interested in is I've heard some reports say she had a flat tire. Other reports say her tires were slashed. What do you know?
I asked the sheriff about that as well this evening, Jane, and what he said was that her front tire, just one tire, was flat. But he could not tell me if it was slashed or if it was something that maybe happened accidentally or intentionally. But that vehicle is at the crime lab right now, and they're still going through to try to determine, if they can determine, how, in fact, that happened.
Becky, Massachusetts, your question or thought, Becky?
Hi, my name is Becky. I love your show.
Thanks.
I watch you every single night. What's your theory on this Karen Swift case?
On this case, I'm not going to say, because just because something looks one way, I don't have all the facts. And that brings me to Bill Warner, who says that this body being found adjacent to a cemetery, Bill, makes you think it could be connected to a serial killer in Memphis. Quickly, your thoughts.
Well, I'm very concerned about that. It seems to be like a signature. There's a problem in Memphis. There is somebody who has been killing women in Memphis. There's been 4 women that have been found, the bodies in or near a cemetery. Now we have Karen Swift, her body found next to a cemetery. It's a signature. It's very concerning.
All right, Bill Warner, thank you.